In this session of a Purple Coffee podcast, I speak to CC Chapman about the importance of not just understanding your culture, but your clients too. Hello, and welcome to session 37 of the Purple Coffee podcast. I am so happy to be joined today by CC Chapman. He is going to be sharing some inspiring entrepreneurial stories. But first, I am your host, Turndog, and I would like to welcome you to my world. Oh yes, I'm speaking to CC Chapman today. I'm so happy to have him part not just of this podcast, but the successful mistake too. He happily jumped on Skype with me to discuss his great mistake. I met him through the wonderful AJ Leon, and this guy is a cool as funk storyteller. As those who follow my little world and are part of the daily emails, you know that I'm a storyteller myself, and I take so much inspiration from the likes of CC. He's working on a few new projects at the minute, and boy, oh boy, oh boy, is it cool as funk. It's all around social intervention and such, and social culture, social enterprises. He did some amazing things at South by Southwest recently, and yeah, he's an absolute awesome guy to follow, and very, very smart indeed. Thankfully, he jumped on mic with me and we talked about his great mistake. And it was all around understanding not just your own culture and your own ideals, but your clients too. Because in some early meetings with a rather big client, he made a few errors. He maybe spoke his mind a bit too much and didn't appreciate just how much the client wanted a few yes men. Now, it's not to say that you should say yes, but it's important for you to understand, because you need to decide, am I going to be a yes man, or do I need to walk away? Do I need this money or don't I? So he talked to CC a lot about not just how he approaches himself in meetings and work in general, but what to look for and what not to in a client. Because remember, it's not just the client who's vetting you, you are indeed vetting your client. It's a very important thing many of us overlook. I know, but I have in the past. So I'm going to jump straight in a second and share this wonderful talk. Honest to God, time flies. I cannot believe how quick my chat with CC went. He's a great storyteller. He's got some great stories, and it just flows from his tongue like a flute by a pixie. I don't even know if pixies played a flute, but I imagine if they did, it flows like CC's ways. So before we do that, I'm going to share a little bio that I made in aid of CC, because that is what I do. And yeah, I hope he likes it, because I'm a bit of a storyteller fanboy. Anyway, I'm going to do this right now. So here's an interesting fact for you. The CC in CC Chapman stands for Courteous Caterpillar. Not because CC is a caterpillar or even a butterfly, but because he loved the book, The Hungry Caterpillar. Oh, so much that all his buddies from school referred to him as Caterpillar, which became Courteous Caterpillar after he spent time at etiquette camp, which led to CC for simplicity's sake. Another interesting fact, all that's a lie. What isn't a lie is that CC Chapman is an incredible storyteller, a marketer and speaker who helps brands stand out through the art of meaningful communications. There's many nooks and crannies to his world, and I encourage you to explore them all, but in short, he's a top dude who knows what makes a good story. In my book, that makes him a frickin' superstar. So let's listen to said frickin' superstar talk some awesome. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and thank you ever so much for joining me. I'm delighted to have with me this evening CC Chapman, who is a storyteller, which means I'm very excited because I always love to connect with fellow storytellers. But CC's also, at the time of recording, at the start of an exciting journey, for he's just started a company called Never Enough Days. And I'm just going to read this right now so I don't get it wrong, but Never Enough Days is a conscience-based consultancy. I think that's fantastic. It's something we need more of in this world. So, CC, first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining me. It's a true pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you for having me. It's fun to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to hear all your stories. Those regular listeners and viewers will know this is in aid of A Successful Mistake, a book all about an entrepreneur's great mistake and how they turned it around, but we won't get to that just yet. First of all, I'm going to pass it over to you so you can just introduce yourself and what it is that you do, and maybe tell us a little bit more about Never Enough Days.
Sure. So my name's CC Chapman. I'm here in the woods outside of Boston, Massachusetts. Lifelong New Englander. Uh, I write books, I speak, I take a lot of photography, and recently, as you mentioned, I launched Never Enough Days, which is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. Where my background's in marketing, I've worked on campaigns for everybody from Coke to HBO, Warner Brothers, Snapple, all kinds of big brands. And a couple of years ago, when I went to Ghana with the one campaign, I came back, which is kind of a new outlook on life, realizing that combine that trip with the fact of turning 40, and I realized that no matter what I wanted to do, I was there. There was never enough days to do everything I wanted to in the world, and I thought that sounded like a philosophy and an approach, just kind of to living your life. And I said, you know what? I really want to. I still want to do marketing. I'm good at it. I wrote the book Content Rules with Ann Handley. I've got a rather big following, and people trust me and come to me for advice and hire me for things. You know what? I want to do something more than just another marketing campaign. So Never Enough Days is focused on helping companies and organizations do work that matters. So not just, doing a social good campaign, around the holidays, but actually figuring out, what's their corporate social responsibility? What makes sense to them? In some cases, it might be partnering with, an NGO somewhere else in the world. But for another company, it might be just partnering with the local schools or civic groups. And I really want to I think businesses are starting to come around to the fact that you can make money. There's nothing wrong with making money, but you can make money and also help the world out around you and be purposeful driven. And that's what I want to help companies figure out and design marketing campaigns that help them be successful doing that. Because let's face it, if a company doesn't make money, they go out of business. But at the same time, I think you can make money and you can think with your heart and your wallet, and that's what I want to help companies do.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I think more and more companies are now they're not just using CSR as a sort of marketing term as such, but they're building their entire business model around it. You look at all the companies that are doing these one-for-one models, their culture, their actual business model is built around this giving mentality. We want to make money, but we also want to make sure other people benefit from it too. And it works.
Exactly. It does work. And what I think is interesting is, I'm talking to some companies right now that are established companies, and it's kind of hard. If it's just going to be a marketing thing, that's one thing. But if you're going to truly adopt a CSR mentality, it's got to be something that's in your culture, from the executives on down to the employees. And I think that's why I'm looking forward to hopefully working with some startups from the beginning who go, we want this to be part of it. Because we all know it's a lot easier to have this when you're 3 to 10 employees than when you're 10,000, because it's really hard.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, it's one thing to sort of build your company around it, but then to be maybe 50, 60 years old and with a huge turnover and a massive staff to then kind of reinvent the wheel, very difficult indeed. And I know that you're buddies with AJ Leon, and he is certainly someone who gives people a kick up in the butt in this sense. All the humanitarian projects he works on.
I love him.
And he just kind of makes you take a step back and go, I am not doing enough.
Yeah, I say it's funny. AJ is one of the people. I actually emailed him this morning because he just gave this great lecture at Oxford that went online, and I just dropped him a note and I said, "Age, he's a dear friend, but I'm like, you make the world a better place, and you're a constant inspiration. Yeah, he's a huge inspiration to me. And his event Misfit Con this summer in Fargo had huge effects on making Never Enough Days happen. I was thinking about it, and finally, I just, I'm like, man, if he can do it, I can do it. And there's more people out there like that. And the best part about ever since I've announced this, more people have come out of the woodwork who have said, Cece, I'm so glad somebody's doing this. Or I've been getting lots of emails saying, Cece, I'm working for X, company X, and my God, I want to do more. Please let me know when you can hire me out of here. I'm like, I will let you know as soon as. And it's been from junior staffers to senior staffers, and I'm just like, oh my God. So now it's like, I need to make this happen more and more, just so I can get more people, because I want to hire these people. Some of these people, I'm like, I would kill to work with them. But yeah, AJ and what he does with Misfit is such a huge inspiration.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. And Misfit Con is on my sort of so high on my hit list to get to in
Oh,
the next couple of years.
it's worth it. It's worth
Oh,
every penny. And
worth it.
Fargo, I who knew? I didn't know Fargo, and I am in love with Fargo now. It's such a special place to me now, and I can't wait to go back.
Oh, from what I hear, and it's just in the middle of nowhere. I remember when I first actually met AJ. It was for the book. It was doing an interview with him, and he was in Fargo, and it was before the first Misfit Con.
Yep.
And it was maybe 2 or 3 months beforehand, and he's like going, "Oh yeah, I'm in Fargo," and I was like, "Where?" And he was like, "Yeah, not many people have heard about it, but in the next couple of years they will because we're bringing this conference here, and it's gonna like really kick off." So I was
Oh,
like,
and they're
"Oh,
doing,
cool."
and it's so amazing because it is in the middle of nowhere, and it's just there's creativity going on. There's businesses starting. They have a really cool culture. I mean, just
Food,
very,
from
it's
what I hear,
amazing.
the
Yeah,
food
and good
culture
beer
there.
too, and good food, and amazing people. I'm itching to go back. Actually, I have lots of offers. I just have to get back out there.
Man, you've got my mouth watering with beer and food. It sounds good. But no, I'm very excited to go, and I think it is a great journey that you're on, and it is. It's going to be a very tough ride for the more established businesses to truly embrace CSR in a way that the world needs. Because it's one thing just saying, "Oh, we're going to put some money around a campaign and look at it as a marketing sort of facility." But that's not really what it's all about. And I think the modern startups are showing that it's built in their culture, and that's when it really works. So it'll be
Yep.
very interesting to see how the more established brands fit it in somehow. And I'm very excited to see what you do in that sense, but also when you work with the up and comers too, because like you say, it's much easier to work with someone when there's maybe only 3 or 4 people strong, and
Yeah.
the impact they can have is still absolutely massive.
Amen to that.
Well, I've got to say, we're going to kick straight on. This is in aid of the success mistake, which is all about an entrepreneur's grand faux pas and how they turn it around. As someone who's worked with the big brands and you've now started your own business, you've been doing a lot of speaking and writing yourself, I'm sure you've got lots of examples of things where it didn't quite go hunky-dory, but you still managed to turn it around somehow. So I'm going to pass it over to you so you can share this story, tell us the journey, how it all came about, and the lessons learned from that. And I'll chime in every now and then.
Yeah, please do. It's funny. I've been fortunate, very fortunate that I haven't made too many like massive, oh my God moment sort of mistakes. I've been very, very fortunate that I haven't. And I think part of it is because I was just, my parents raised me right. I think before I talk, those sort of things.
Yeah.
But I mean, a couple that come to mind though is like I vividly remember. So I don't come from the big agency background, and we had just started. Me and my business partner Steve Colson had just started an agency called the Advance Guard, and we were in a meeting. It was my first like client meeting with a huge, huge brand, and we're just in this room and they're throwing out ideas about campaigns and stuff we were going to be doing, and I just started questioning them, and I was like, well, will this work, or have you thought about this, not just being devil's advocate, but actually being concerned about some of the decisions that were being made. And what I didn't realize was here I was sitting with the senior creative director for this company, very high level person, and I didn't realize that you're not supposed to do that. I had no idea. I'm like, I don't care about your agency background. I don't care about your cred. I just care about the idea and if it's the right thing for the client. And we almost lost the gig because they were actually kind of offended by it. And my partner, I'll never forget, he does come from a full big agency background. He's like, dude, you don't do that. You don't question the creative director like that. And he's like, especially when you're the client, they're the client. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And it could have gone horrible. It could have been, I didn't have any idea. Thankfully, the guy was really cool about it afterwards when, I said, hey, I hope you didn't take these personally. I just thought, the best thing for the client was this. And it took him a little while, and it took us a long time to kind of get on, because he always thought I was challenging him and rather than trying to help. But we didn't lose the business, but it could have gone really, really bad. Sometimes speaking from the heart, it can go bad. And I always remember that moment where this was a huge client, huge contract, and we were just starting our business, and it could have gone completely just blown up. And thankfully it didn't, though.
Wow. Well, I want to dig a little bit deeper here because
Yeah.
for me, it touches on the whole idea of company culture, and it's such a massive thing. And I always see it as this: on the one hand, you're building your own culture. You know, you're a new entrepreneur, you're building this company, and you've got your own culture in mind. And you get so warped in that it's like we want to do it in a particular way. We're inspired by this person and by this
Yeah.
brand. We're building our culture, but all the time you're having to consider every other people's culture as well. You know, your clients, your
Yep.
suppliers, those people you're having meetings with. You know, there's obviously other country cultures. That's the obvious side of
Oh
culture, I
yeah.
suppose. But every single business is going to have a slightly different way of doing things, and it's really difficult to sometimes see it from their point of view. It's not like you're meaning to be a jerk about it.
Right.
You're just you like you say, you're passionate about it. You're wanting to make it the best thing possible, and you're thinking about your culture, and it's easy to lose sight of the other person's.
Yeah, and I think what it really boils down to, and I see this, I mean, pick any news headline that's upsetting the internet right today because it could change tomorrow. But I mean, what it boils down to, at least for me, is I think as long as you are treating the other person with respect, whatever that means in that situation, as long as you treat them with respect and you're not talking down to them or you're not ever playing the I'm better than you card, as long as you treat them with respect, I think that's just it gets forgotten about in today's internet culture where you can just send an email or a tweet or a comment and you don't necessarily think about the repercussions. It's why I love face to face better than anything, because it's really hard to look 99% of what is said online would never be said face to face ever.
No.
And and it's just one of those things where it's like that's my rule for just life. And but I mean, I'm trying, and having two kids, I try to teach them that too, is as long as you're treating somebody else with respect. And the other thing, especially in like the case of what I was just talking about, as long as you're willing to stand by what you say and truly mean it, that you know what, you're very rarely going to go wrong. And if you treat that person with respect and you firmly believe in what you say and you're saying it with respect, and if you still get fired or let go or whatever at that point, maybe I would argue that's not the company or the person you want to work with, because sometimes cultures are going to clash and they just are not going to work. And we've all had those clients or relationships where it's just like, it's as much as you want it to, it's just not meant to be. And that's the way I've looked at it, because I've already had people I've had people challenge me over the years on lots of different things, and I'm like, you know what, if it's just not meant to be, it's not meant to be. There's a lot more important things in life than strictly a paycheck.
Absolutely. And I think, getting that balance is key. And I want to touch on that again a little bit.
Sure.
But first, just go through a little bit more with what it was like around this time with his client. Do you think it was down to sort of ego more than the culture? And how did you manage it? You say it took a little bit of time for those, I suppose, creases to be ironed out. How long did that take, and what did you do to sort of smooth a relationship?
It was definitely ego. I mean, it was, in this case specifically, it was 99.999% ego. It was just, how dare this young whippersnapper come question me, is what it was. And I mean, I wasn't that young, but I was younger than him for sure. And I think what made it better in the long run is as we worked with more people. I mean, this was one of the original kickoff meetings, and as we worked as a team on different things, and as they started realizing, oh, this company and these guys, they understand that, they know what they're talking about, and they started realizing, I think that trust sort of built up, because when you first start a relationship, you don't know if the person, I can sound like the greatest person in the world on paper, but until you actually do the work, you don't know. And I think when the work actually started being successful and when the work started going through, that meeting was forgotten about. At least I think it was. It just seemed like it got put away. And when we did challenge things, all of a sudden it was at that level of, hey, well, let's actually talk about this now, because if you're challenging this, maybe we should listen. But it did take a while. I mean, we worked with this client for years, so I mean, it got better for sure. But yeah, at the beginning, it was somebody, slapped their ego around a little bit.
Yeah. And do you think your partner helped in that sense with having that
Oh,
background?
for sure.
Did he, I suppose, balance the scales?
Well, he was the perfect combination, because he was an agency guy. He was a Brit. So he just it was he was funny. He was my night and day. We were different in so many ways, but worked together so well. But oh yeah, he definitely helped for sure. Because without a doubt.
So what kind of lessons did that teach you? Because you've obviously worked with many clients in many sort
Yep.
of different realms since. And like we say, every time you work with a new client, you've got to have this mentality in mind of, I don't really know what their culture's like until I get to know them. But at the same time, I want to be able to speak my mind and be passionate. So it is a difficult balance to have. So how have you learned to, I suppose, approach that in a more level-headed manner in a way that gets best both worlds?
Yeah, I think the key thing is you have to learn the rules of the game before you can break them. And that goes for anything in life, but especially when you're in a new client relationship, you really have to learn what the politics and what the rules are in that office. You know who the alphas are and who the omegas are. All that really comes in handy. And so wait a little bit past that first meeting before you start challenging things, unless you're really, because I have seen clients that are like, oh, we're gonna drive this car off the cliff, and you go, what? Hold on, back up. I mean, it happens sometimes, but I think that's really good advice to whatever situation is. Really figure out um really figure out the rules, know what's going on, know who gets offended lightly. And, it just takes a few meetings and a few phone calls or whatever you're doing to really start getting the hang of that. But I think that's a really key. Come in a little bit softer, and I've definitely gotten better at that over the years.
No, I think that's good advice. Kind of dip your toe into the water before you jump in
Oh yeah.
wholeheartedly. And is there something else that you can do? Like, have you ever kind of researched a client beforehand to try and get it? Or if you know someone who knows the person, maybe go to them for advice to try and gauge their sort of personality types and what is and isn't expected?
Oh yeah, if you've got that sort of inside track, you'd be stupid not to find out. Yeah, it always helps because someone brought you in the door.
Mm.
So usually you have some sort. Yeah, if you can sort of ask and say, "Hey, tell me about this person," or "Tell me about that," or "Who should I watch out for?" or "What are pitfalls?" I mean, and it's funny because I remember you triggered something else about that. Where same client one time, and this was in the early days too. We asked him. We said, "What kind of campaigns have you done in the past that either failed or that you didn't like?" Just because we were trying to figure out the sort of thing,
Mm.
where their tolerance for things were. And it kind of relates to that same thing because it was a really helpful exercise. And I've done that a lot since then, just to kind of go, hey, can we stop and take, 15-20 minutes? It always ends up being an hour about, what are some of the things that you haven't liked, or campaigns you saw from your competitors that freaked you out? Because you kind of get that, when you don't know the call, that's a good exercise to go through because it starts giving you an idea of, oh, this company likes humor, or they don't, or they're kind of conservative, or they're more open and easygoing. Doing those sort of exercises to kind of get a grasp is a really, really, really good way to start any relationship.
And this is very applicable to those, especially in the sort of more service industry where you're actually going to be dealing with agencies and different kind of clients
Yeah.
because you might have the greatest idea in the world, but if it doesn't connect with their brand and with their the people sort of at the top, then you need to sway away from that because you're trying to make a happy client come the end of
Yeah.
the day, as well as something that's got loads of impact and full of goodness.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got a head full of ideas of projects I would love to do that I just haven't found the right client for. I mean,
Yeah.
that's we've all got those. We're like, and then the worst though, and I'm sure you've had this happen. You see some other project do your idea, and you're like, I want, I always hate that, but it happens.
Absolutely no. Never a good thing when that one happens. So no, I think that's a really interesting point. And you say that it sounds somewhat obvious, but we all know that we need to kind of go in and maybe be a bit sort of cautious and try and find out as much information as possible. But especially in the early days, we're busy individuals and we get these meetings and we do what we need to do to be prepared. But then we forget to ask the question to the person who did the introduction in the first place to just kind
Yep.
of gauge personality types. Things like that are easily overlooked, but are often the linchpin to whether it's going to be a successful relationship or not, or if it's an early meeting, whether you get the gig at all.
Yes. True. Very true.
Excellent. So let's go back to the sort of balancing act in terms of getting the balancing act of your culture so you can shine through and to also respect the other people. So how do you feel, do you need to really understand what you want from your culture? And you really need to kind of do the legwork in that sense because then you know the limits. Because like you say, some clients aren't the right client for you. It might be good money, it might be a prestigious brand, but there's a fine balance between whether you should do a gig just for money or whether it's going to go completely against your culture and your mentality and what you stand for.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I want to preface where it's one of those things where sometimes you have to take the gig because you have to. You got to provide for your family, you got bills to pay. I get that. Outside of that, stepping beyond that, you're not going to starve if you pass on a client. I think knowing yourself and knowing your culture is very, very crucial. And it's one of the things that took me a long time with Never Enough Days, because I really, where I was starting it with just me, but I want to, I plan on growing it way beyond me. I want to make it very clear from day one if I know my culture, if I know my beliefs, if I know my moral compass, then it's going to be very obvious to clients who are even going to go to my website and go, oh, what do they do? Or people who are going to come in and possibly work for me. I'm going to wear it on my sleeve. It's going to be out there in the open. So that way, nobody's ever going to come to me and be like, hey, we're a big oil company, we want to do a social good campaign where for every $1 plus one we get, no, go away. That's not what I want. You either get it or you don't.
Yeah.
And it's funny because going back, AJ should be paying us here. I just realized that because watch it. Well, because I got something else he said this morning. I was watching this lecture he gave, and he said one of the pieces of advice that he gives to every company when he first starts an engagement with them is that they should have a manifesto about what they are all about. And I went, why don't I have a manifesto? Dummy. I thought about it, and I've had the idea, and I was like, that's a really good idea, because it's beyond a mission statement, it's beyond a vision. It really says what you believe. And it was one of those things I thought that's true, because if you can't write a manifesto, the more I thought about it, if I can't write a manifesto about my company, then I don't know my company well enough. And I think it's interesting. You see what a lot of these startups these days, you wonder if they understand their culture, if they've spent any time on that, or they think the culture is, oh, we're going to have that hip, cool office with the foosball table and which is part of your culture. I get that. But at the same time, I'm just like, I think it's more about what's in your heart and in your head. So it's crucial to take the time. And it's one of the main reasons why I had this idea for the company earlier this summer, and I didn't pull the trigger on it for a long time, because I was like, is this really what I want? Do I know what I want? Do I know what it's going to be? Do I know what services we're going to offer? Because if you can't answer all those questions, you can't be a business in my mind.
No, absolutely. And I know that you can appreciate with my thought process here, being a storyteller yourself. It's one of the reasons I love storytelling and brand storytelling, is because you have to delve deep. You have to kind of create, I call them Marmite brands. I don't know if you've heard of Marmite, but it's a disgusting food here in England. You spread it on toast, and people either love it.
Oh yes, yes, I have heard of it.
Yeah, people either love it or they hate it. But the whole point of kind of building your story and your culture as a business is, like you say, you wear it on your sleeve. So whether people meet you in person or they come across our website, in an instant they just know, yeah, I get this, I'm on board, I want it, or no, this is stupid. There's no indecision, there's no somewhere in the middle. It's like love or hate. And if you build your culture properly and you truly understand yourself, you're not going to be put in these difficult cultural issues where you're meeting clients where you don't align and you're having to tiptoe around them, because you'll have made it really clear from the get-go that it's like, this is the kind of brand I am. Does it align with you? If so, let's get into bed with each other and do some awesome work. If not, let's walk the other way.
Yeah, and it's funny because you see the buzzword of transparency a lot now. And transparency, this is what I'm talking about, and what you're talking about. That's what true transparency is that you do share those sort of things and you do speak from the heart. And yet, everybody else, the buzzword of transparency, it's gotten kind of just like storytelling. It's got kind of, the marketing people have got a hold of it, and now it's all kind of mangled, but at its core, it's still a really important thing.
Well, absolutely, because when I think of things like transparency and storytelling, it just means that you're understanding who the person is, and why the brand is relevant, and why they're worthy of your time, because time is our most precious thing. It's infinite by source, but it's very much finite to us. There's only 24 hours in a day. So that's for me all about the story. You know, it's really delving into the deep thing, and it's saying come into our message, like come into our belief. And once you start sharing that, and you start understanding that, you're able to do some really amazing things with it because you are able to build your culture. Everything you said before with like the foosball tables and everything, that's all the aesthetics. It's like,
Yes.
you know, what kind of communication you're going to use. You're going to be on Twitter or Facebook. To be honest, all that's unimportant. What matters is the message. If you don't get the message right, it doesn't
Yep.
matter whether you're on Twitter or Facebook.
And yet people get so hung up in the tools first. And
Yeah.
I always vividly remember at the same agency, the Advance Guard, we had somebody come to us and said, "Hey, I remember the dollar figures even. They said, "Hey, we have $80,000. Make us a viral video." We literally laughed at him, and then we laughed, but then we replied to him and said, well, what sort of video are you looking for? How are you going to measure success? What is it? Is this to launch a new product? Or we asked all these questions, and they literally wrote back and were like, well, we don't care any about that. We just want it to go viral. And we said, well, there's a whole bunch of agencies we can introduce you to, but we're not right for you. Because I was like, you want to spend the biggest thing I hate in the world is to waste a client's money. And I hate watching clients waste money, or not even my clients. I hate watching people waste money. And and me and my business partner, we could have taken, I mean, 80 grand is nothing to shake our head at. That's some real money. And I remember we both went, yeah, but what do we want to, this is ridiculous. And we knew, we're like, this isn't right for us. Yeah. But perfect example of people they weren't focusing on the really important thing.
Absolutely. It's like when people, well, I saw a webinar last week and I should be on LinkedIn, so just kind of make LinkedIn work for me. It's like, but you need to like embrace LinkedIn. You need to learn how to use it. You can't just get someone else to make it work for you. It's not as simple as that. But unfortunately, I suppose like the old school marketing way was, you click your fingers and the consumers will come running.
Of course, right?
Case anymore at all. Well, I think it's been a great journey, and just to tie things up, I think culture, both understanding your culture, for me, understanding your culture and building a culture, and I suppose understanding comes before the building, is the most important thing any entrepreneur is going to do. If they can build something of meaning, then they're going to be successful. They're going to be able to define their version of success, and they're going to live towards it. But I think an equally important thing is understanding other people's culture and being respectful of that. You used the word respectful earlier. And I think that's a really key point because everyone's got customers and clients and suppliers. And we're always got to be conscious of, does their culture align with our culture? Can we understand ours? Can we understand theirs? So to the new entrepreneur out there who is probably not quite got to grasp with their own culture and they're still maybe chasing the money all the time and they easily forget about other people's, what would you give them in terms of advice to help get a control of that and to avoid maybe the conflicts that you saw all those years ago?
I think a couple things. I mean, on the personal side, to know their culture and their company's culture that they're building is to actually take the time to think about it. I mean, I know as entrepreneurs, any entrepreneur can tell you there's always more work that can be done. You could work 24 hours a day and still not get it all done. That's just part of being an entrepreneur. But and some people would laugh at taking time to go offline and actually think about your culture, but it's critical. I mean, it really is to take, especially as your team grows, to make sure that everybody's still in line with that, to actually know what works for you and what your beliefs are. And I'm sure that I can hear people's eyes rolling as they're listening to it. That might sound touchy-feely to some people, but I think it's really, really crucial. And as you grow and become more successful, it's very easy to lose it or just have it become second nature for everybody who works for you. So I think you have to take the time. For me, my way of doing it is I go for walks or I go for rucks where I put a backpack on full of weight and go for a long walk. No music, no phone. I go, and that lets me clear my head is how I think about things. And I really take the time. I take lots of notes as well. There's always a notebook by me. So those are my personal approaches. or the other way too is to talk to more people, talk to people you respect, have that personal, I call it a personal advisory board, where have those friends who won't just go, hey, that's awesome, but they'll actually go, well, I don't know, have you thought about this? They'll challenge you, they will poke you and prod you and help you, because and you trust them enough to know that anything they're going to bring to you is going to be looking out for your best interest. And I think more people need those things. On the other, I mean, on the flip side, dealing with customers and the culture of your company, the other companies you're looking to deal with, I mean, really take the time. I mean, we have the internet. It's the best research tool ever. Just, actually take the time, before you go into a meeting. It takes 5 seconds to look up on LinkedIn or Twitter or any of the networks, take your network, the people you're meeting with, figure out, look, you might have some mutual connections, or, depending if they're active on a social network, you might see things that, oh, wow, they're into this. Oh, cool. They were at that concert, or, oh, gives you like a starter conversation. It has to be genuine. Don't be those people. PR does it all the time, where I get a pitch. Hey, CC, last week I read your post on this, and it feels so disgenuine. But if it, have those small talk, those icebreaker things is always great. And you can also now with LinkedIn company pages or the website, if the company you're going to go meet with, if they understand their culture and if they understand their environment, things like their websites and their social presence are hopefully going to reflect that same sort of environment. They might not, because they may not be doing a good job, but you can get a sort of feel at least for where they're coming from, and that'll help you. Just do your homework.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in the sense of, quite often we'll go to the website to find out very sort of feature information, the nuts and bolts. Like, I go to the website so I can know what products they're gonna sell. So I've got that kind of information to go into a meeting. But if you go to a website and just think, what does this make me feel right now? Like, what kind of colors are they using? Are they using animations? Are they using cartoon? Is it very stock photo-esque? You can get a really good insight into the sort of culture and style a company has by just spending a couple of minutes on their about page.
Yes.
Just getting a bit of a general feel. Now, chances are it might be a little bit off topic, because they might be in the middle of wanting to do a redesign, and for the sole purposes, they're not getting their culture across. But more often than not, their website will give you a really key insight into like who they are and their culture, and it's just going with that mindset.
I love going to their about pages, or their team pages, because the way companies showcase their employees or their executives instantly tells you a lot about their culture. Is it the old fashioned, what I call banker headshot, boring, or is it playful and fun? I mean, little things like that can tell you a lot right away. And it's not going to help you land the deal, but then you can at least know if you can be a little playful or if it's very professional. You get a feeling for attire, how they dress. I mean, there's lots of things you can pick up from those little things on the website. But you're right. Don't get too hung up, because they could be going through a redesign. You have no idea, but it's a great place to start.
Oh man, don't even get me started on about pages. I've got like this sick fascination with them, and if I come across a brand that I like and they have a terrible about page, I just want to like, no, I'm never going to talk to you ever again. I feel betrayed by you. You're such an amazing brand, and your about page is in third person, and it's so stale and boring. Well, CC, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I think the insight you offer is a great one. Culture is such an important aspect in any entrepreneur's life, and it's both from an internal point and an external. I sometimes forget it. I'm always so focused on my sort of culture and the clients that I'm working with, their culture in terms of like the project, but it's easy to forget that when you go into a meeting, it's like, well, actually, not understanding their culture and not respecting it could be the difference between me getting this gig or not. But culture is such an important thing, and unfortunately, as you experienced, a lot of the time it comes down to ego. It might not even be the company's culture, rather than just that person. And just having the foresight to actually maybe speak to someone who you know and be like, Dave, what kind of person is he? Is he going to appreciate me challenging him? Or is he going to be someone who isn't going to like that? Should I maybe leave that until the set check's been signed?
Yeah, always a good thing. Make sure, never hurts to have a check in hand.
But some people really want to be pushed in them initial meetings. They're kind of judging you whether you are just going to be a yes man or not. So it's difficult, because different personalities will want different things. And I personally, at the time, it can give your ego a bit of a beating, but I want people to push me and challenge me, because that's when you found someone who's going to actually go the extra mile on a campaign.
Yeah, and it's one of those things we were talking about. You got to know yourself. If you're confident and you're ready to challenge that person, because like yes men, oh my god, I hate those sort of people.
Oh,
It drives me.
Jesus.
But some managers love having them work for them.
Too
So
many do, in
yeah,
my
there's nothing
experience.
worse. There,
It's why I
if I
started working for
oh
myself, because I was like the
right.
worst yes man ever. I thought, I'm unemployable. I just cannot say yes to people, so therefore I just need to work for myself.
Yeah, nothing makes me, and it goes the other way too. When I'm hiring people, if I can tell that they're just like kissing up to me and just I'm like, no, I want free thinkers. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't. Oh God, and it's funny because as a parent, I teach my kids to be strong-willed and opinionated and stuff, and then they come back to you with it, and you go, oh no, So sometimes it'd be just like when managing. Sometimes it's easier not to have those free thinkers and stuff, but I think they make the best clients, employ
Oh.
all the above.
In the moment, they're always the most frustrating people. But when
Yep.
you have a bit of time to breathe and take a step back, you're like, I appreciate these people because
Amen to
they are
that.
pushing
Yep.
us to greatness. So I absolutely agree in that sense. Well, Cece, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you part of this. And
Thank
yeah,
you for having me.
oh, pleasure is all mine. And I always love talking about culture. Being all about story, I think culture and story, they're just brother and sister, and they are such a key component to a business. And unfortunately, not enough businesses really understand them, and that's kind of what we've been talking about. And it's difficult. You kind of have this assumption that you know what your story and your culture is because it makes sense in your brain. But to be able to articulate that in a way where it's just got in an instant, that
Yep.
is the real art form. So thank you ever so much, and thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Listener, for joining us. So for me and CC, a big cheers. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you oh so much for joining us on today's session of the Purple Coffee Podcast, and a big thanks to Mr. Chapman for sharing his most awesome tale. I don't know about you, but I took a heck of a lot from that. And culture is a massive part of any business, whether you're a one-man band, in the online space, the traditional space, whatever it might be. But it's not just your culture. Every time you deal with a supplier or a customer or a client or whoever, you're dealing with someone else's culture too. And that doesn't even get into the nitty-gritty of going to different countries. Oh no. It's a huge thing, and it's something we often overlook, and I've come across it a few times in the Success Mistake. And the way CC paints that picture is an incredible one indeed. So I hope you've taken a lot from it, and I hope that you will also listen and follow CC in the future. He's working on some incredible projects at the moment. I encourage you to check him out. You can do so at tdog.co/purplecoffee37. That's tdog.co/purplecoffee37. All the links are there. He links to his world. Be sure to check it out. Honest to God, if you are interested in stories and how brands tell their stories, he is someone you want to follow. And whilst there, please consider signing up to the mailing list, where you get daily doses of short and sweet spectacularness from myself, where you will also get up-to-date and sneak peek content to this very podcast before everyone else, which is rather cool indeed. But for the most part, if you get 2 minutes, maybe you're listening to me on this phone now and you can't do it in the here and now, do so when you get home, and consider subscribing, rating and reviewing the Purple Coffee Podcast, maybe on iTunes or wherever else you tend to listen. Honest to gosh, subscribing and rating and reviewing is a podcaster's best friend. But above all else, even above the subscribing bit, just have a most awesome day. I hope you've learnt a lot today, and I hope to hear from you soon. So, from Turn Dog out, keep it cool.